Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention for just a couple of minutes. I have very important things to say. They involve free things that you're going to get. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here this evening to the 14th annual dinner of the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society in the Modern Era. I say that because, frankly, before 2004, we have no records, which is a somewhat ironic admission from a historical society. But thank you all for being here. I want to extend a special thank you to all of the sponsors who very generously contributed to make this event a success. You have seen their names broadcast on the screens during the evening and the cocktail reception. So thank you to all of those firms. I did promise you something free, so when you leave this evening, in addition to the Historical Society's newsletter, you will have attached to it a handy wipe that you can use for all of your mobile devices, phones, tablets, your eyeglasses, for those of you who are old-fashioned, and it has this wonderful photo of the Florida Supreme Court on it. It also doubles, as you saw, as a pocket square. I am now going to invoke the right of every president of the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society to step down from this stage and turn the event over to our secret weapon, Hank Coxe. "200 years ago, when this event began, Hank graciously agreed to MC, and he has served in that capacity ever since. So Hank, as all my predecessors have before me, I thank you for relieving me of this duty, and I invite you to come up. Come on, some love. Show him some love, people, for good.
It's good to be back. And I appreciate that. As most of you know, this is the evening each year when we celebrate the gross profits for the court's year. We allocate those earnings to each justice who's done appropriately. And we deceive the Speaker of the House into investigating this source of revenue, unlike every other source of revenue in the state of Florida. But it's a privilege that I can announce the presence of Chief Justice George Labarga, and his wife, Justice Pariente, Justice Alan Lawson, I don't know because staff dropped the ball and to give me the list if Justice Quince is here, or Justice Kennedy, or Justice Polston, or Justice Lewis. Where? He is here. Let me also welcome retired justices. I know I saw Justice Harry Anstead earlier, somewhere. Justice Grimes. Justice Bell. And Justice Harding. What I'd like to do at this, Judge Hatchett. The United States 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Florida Supreme Court, Judge Hatchett. My apologies, Judge Hatchett. Anyone else? Anyone else want to claim they served on the Supreme Court? At this time, I'd like to call former Chief Justice Major Harding to come forward. I will tell a true story. Years ago, I was a young assistant state attorney, very young. Where's Major? There he is. He had asked me when I was a young assistant state attorney, we can stand here as long as we need to, if I would babysit for him and Jane for their three little children because they were going to the North Carolina mountains. And the reason, this is true, the reason Justice Harding, who was then Chief Judge of the Fourth Circuit, asked me if I would do that, because I was young and I was single, and he was so straight, he believed that if you were single, you had nothing to do on the weekends. That's true. So at this time, let me introduce the former Chief Justice.
Thank you. Thank you, Hank. It's my privilege and my pleasure to share with you some memories of Parker Lee McDonald, former Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, and a colleague and a friend of long standing who passed away in June of last year. After graduating from high school in Sebring, Florida, one semester at the University of Florida, Justice McDonald served our country in Germany during World War II. After the war, he attended the University of Florida, where he met his wife, Ruth, and then they were married in 1949, and he later obtained his law degree in 1950. He initially practiced law with his father in the hometown of Sebring, and a short time later he joined the firm that became Gunter, McDonald, and Hanley in Orlando, and he was appointed to the circuit court bench there in 1961. I got to know Justice McDonald in the early 70s when I became a circuit judge in Jacksonville and became involved in the Conference of Circuit Judges. Parker Lee became chair of the conference in the mid-70s, and later he became chief judge of the Ninth Circuit in Orlando. It was in 1979 that Governor Graham appointed him to the Supreme Court of Florida, and he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1986. I had the privilege of working with him after my appointment to the Supreme Court in January of 1991 until he retired in 1994. Recalling memories of Justice McDonald would not be complete without the story of his first day at the Supreme Court. He was standing in the rotunda of the court, looking around and whistling. The marshal hurried up to him and told him that whistling was prohibited in the Supreme Court. He told the marshal that he was the new justice on the court and said, "I don't care what Mama don't allow, I'm going to whistle anyhow." Well, he quickly obtained the title of the whistling justice, and while it is reported that he and the marshal laughed and that they became friends, I'm sure that the marshal must have rolled his eyes and wondered. But those of us who worked with him at the court fondly remember that he really was the whistling justice. His sense of humor was legendary. While he was a circuit judge in Orlando, lawyers used easels with flip charts to make their points to the jury. And these flip charts were the forerunners of what we now know as PowerPoint or modern apps. And it's reported that on one occasion during a trial, Justice McDonald went into the courtroom early one morning, and a few pages into the pad that was on the easel, he wrote in very large letters, "The judge is a fink." And as the court proceedings began, the lawyer was using the pad, and as he was making his points to the jury and flipping the page, he came to the page that said, "The judge is a fink." The lawyer was horrified and quickly flipped to the next page. Justice McDonald and all of the group laughed, a hearty laugh, and he explained to them what he had done. It has not been reported what the lawyer ultimately thought or whether he has ever recovered. Well, shortly before Justice McDonald was appointed to the Supreme Court, several justices had retired from the court, claiming that they would not be able to live on the judicial salary. And during the interview for his appointment, he was asked if and how he could manage on the salary. And it is reported that his reply was, "You live in yesterday's house, you drive yesterday's car, and you stay married to yesterday's wife." Those of us who knew and worked with Justice McDonald at the court remember not only his good humor and collegiality, but also about the certainty of his opinions. I recall several instances of how during conferences he insisted that I was wrong. And not only wrong, but was very wrong. And yet it was in these situations that he would do it in such a way and with such humor so that you had no reservation of going to lunch with him and the other justices after the conference. He also took the opportunity of sometime expressing his opinion in addition to his vote about another justice's opinion being circulated. And if he really liked it, he would put a smiley face on the vote sheet. And if he really didn't like it, he would put a frowny face on the vote sheet. But bottom line, we never had any doubt about Justice McDonald's thoughts regarding ours or others' opinions. In 1984, Justice McDonald authored a significant opinion, State versus Neal, and that case dealt with the issue of racial discrimination in the use of peremptory challenges in the selection of jurors in criminal cases in Florida, and laid the foundation for a later concern of gender discrimination in the legal profession. And in 1987, Chief Justice McDonald created the Gender Bias Study Commission, and I was honored to have been appointed to serve on that commission. And that commission played a significant role in advancing the professionalism of the bar. But as I look back over my time there, the most significant event of my service came when I received a confirmation of my hotel registration where the commission was meeting. On the envelope containing the confirmation was printed, Judge Major B. Harding, Florida Gender Bias Stud. I am not sure if I ever thanked him for the honor. But along with his humor and certainty of opinion, Parker Lee McDonald was clearly a man of faith. He was active in the Methodist Church throughout his entire life. His faith was evident to all and especially to his family. I was told that he gave family prayers whenever the family got together, and one of the most significant and touching memories the family had was at the granddaughter's wedding a few weeks before he died. Unexpectedly, he asked if he could pray, and he insisted on standing and with the assistance of someone else and with help, he did stand and he prayed a most beautiful prayer, and the family reports that that prayer was a special blessing and a special memory to all there. Parker Lee and his wife Ruth have been blessings not only to the family and the courts of Florida, but to many individuals and organizations they have helped and enhanced. The growth of the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society can largely be attributed to the efforts of Ruth McDonald. She was not only the backbone, but she was the treasurer of this organization for many years. And we are honored to have Ruth McDonald here tonight, and members she's at table 24. Thank you. And we are also honored to have members of his family, their son Robert and his wife Patty and their daughter Laura Dennis, and also his daughter Ruth Ann and her husband Robert High. While Justice McDonald may be gone from our presence, he will certainly never be forgotten. Thank you. I would ask that you now join me in an invocation. Gracious God, we thank you not only for our form of government, but for all of those who have served and now serve in each branch to preserve and ensure our liberties and freedom since its beginning. We give you special thanks for the event that draws us together tonight to honor those who have served on the Supreme Court of Florida in the past and for those who now serve. We seek your continued wisdom, guidance, and courage as they protect our liberties and freedoms. And we give special thanks for the gift of Parker Lee McDonald, whose memory we honor tonight. We thank you for the example of grace and goodwill he set for us in his career as a trial judge and a justice on the Florida Supreme Court. We are also grateful for the life and service of Jack Harkness, whose guidance and leadership contributed not only to the excellence of the Florida Bar, but also to the good of our state. And we ask your blessings on all gathered here tonight, and thank you for the food that we will eat and the fellowship we will share, and especially the speaker we will hear. We make our prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Justice Harding. I consider Ruth McDonald a good friend. We bonded when I had the privilege of taking over as president of the Supreme Court Historical Society. She called me 2 days later and said, "Hank, I just want you to know I think we're missing $400,000 as treasurer," but it was all right. She called back 2 days later and she said, "I think it's only $300,000. Let me ask any current or former District Court of Appeals judges to stand and be recognized. I know we have some here. Any trial judges who are amongst us? Thank you. This is the obligatory part. Past presidents of the Florida Bar. I think we have two past presidents of the American Bar Association here. I think Sandy Dalbert is here, and I think Martha Barnett is here. And then perhaps most importantly, anyone who's present who was a recipient of a pro bono recognition earlier today. You know, and for those of you who aren't in this profession, it never quits. I saw Judge Seitz stand up. Any current or former federal judges other than Judge Seitz and Judge Hatchett? Now, for everyone's benefit, if you're not aware of it, the Constitution Revision Commission is currently meeting in Tallahassee, and it has been weekly for several weeks. And there are some people I want to recognize. You may not be aware there are 37 members of the commission. Different appointing authorities have a certain number. The governor had 15. And other than the one individual I want to introduce, who's Carlos Baruf, who's chair of the commission appointed by Governor Scott, who's sitting with the Chief Justice, and his wife. And the governor had to appoint 14 others, so he appointed Gray Robinson. I don't think that's funny. I also want to recognize, as our guests of the Supreme Court and the Society tonight, Sherry Plymel on the commission, appointed by the President of the Senate from Naples. Carolyn Timmons, a commissioner who was appointed by the Senate President from Stuart, Florida. Rich Newsom, who's appointed by the Speaker from Orlando. Brecht Hutchin, appointed by the Governor, who's from here in Tallahassee. Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch, appointed by the Senate President from Sewell's Point, Florida. And John Stemberger, appointed by the Speaker from Orlando. And if I missed any commissioners, I apologize. The other past presidents, okay, Bill Schifino. Surprised he didn't come up here and tell you he was here. Right. Also, I want everybody to know that a past president of the Society who could not be here tonight from Tampa, Sylvia Walbolt, who's one of the greatest, strongest members of this society ever, had an unfortunate, serious fall in Tampa a few days ago and is recovering and could not be here but sends her best. Now, let me introduce Leonard Gilbert. Where's Leonard? Leonard, if you'd come on up. Leonard is past president of the Florida Bar, past chair of the trustees of the United States Court of Appeals from the state of Florida, and ask Leonard to do a special recognition. One of the people who can't be here tonight is my wife, Mary, who's in Jacksonville, but she had said, as some of you have heard before, that if I ever mention her, don't even think about suggesting that she's my best friend. Don't ever make the mistake I made after hearing that when I told the audience that she was one of my best friends. So, Leonard?
Good evening. Let's give Hank a big hand. He's truly the most valuable member of this organization, and we appreciate very much all that he does and the humor that he brings to us in the course of some of the serious things that we undertake. Good evening. Chief Justice Labarga, members of the court and judiciary, distinguished guests all, I have the honor and privilege of presenting the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society Lifetime Achievement Award to John F. Jack Harkness, Jr. Obviously, he is well known to practically every person in this room, but in the event you don't know Jack, you can ride by the Florida Bar headquarters and see the sign out there on the highway, John F. Harkness Complex. No doubt about it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "There's no limit to what can be accomplished if it doesn't matter who gets the credit." That statement epitomizes the career of Jack Harkness as executive director of the Florida Bar, beginning in 1980 and concluding at the end of 2017. Jack is one of the finest people I have ever known. He has had a 37-year career at the bar and left it far better than when he arrived. He has an unblemished reputation and deserves the appreciation of the entire legal profession for his many contributions to it. Many of you know Jack's history. He grew up in Miami, attended the University of Florida both for college and law. He was president of Blue Key. Following law school, he came to Tallahassee and worked for the Department of Legal Affairs and in the legislature as a staff director of the House Judiciary Committee following the late Janet Reno in that position. He spent some time in private practice in Miami and then returned to Tallahassee at the invitation of the Florida Supreme Court to serve as the state court administrator. I first met Jack when he interviewed for the position of executive director at the bar. The search committee was comprised of myself, Jim Reineman of Jacksonville, Steve Zack of Miami, Sam Smith of Miami Beach, with the former bar president, Earl Hadlow of Jacksonville, as the chair, and there may have been one or two others. In the end, we offered Jack the position of executive director, and we were very lucky that he accepted. His first official act was to join us at the 1980 Bar Convention in Boca Raton, where then Chief Justice Arthur England swore in Sam Smith as president-elect and swore me in as president. Some of you have heard me say before that when Jack and I first went over to the Florida Bar offices a few weeks before the convention, I told him I didn't know whether there was a notebook or a handbook as to how to be executive director or the duties of the executive director, but I was certain there were lots of files and he could glean a path to follow from them. Boy, was I wrong. Not only was there no handbook or guide for Jack, but there were no files at all. Nothing to educate him on how the things got handled in the past. In the end, the lack of a handbook or files was a blessing in disguise. Jack was able to chart his own course and write his own plan. He crafted that plan ever so successfully. Assisting Jack was the fabulous and well-trained staff of the Florida Bar. Jack and the staff bonded immediately. During his first year as executive director, he created an atmosphere of collegiality among the bar staff that still exists today. Witness the vast number of people who spend their entire careers working on the Florida Bar under Jack's leadership. Jack was also aided by his first Board of Governors, those serving through the 1980-1981 term. Many of them, fortunately, were friends of us, both of us. Rowlett Bryant from Panama City, Bob Josephsberg, Bob Parks, Toby Simon from Miami, Sid Stubbs, Jerry Richmond, Steve Rappanecker, Sonny Block, Bill Henry, Jim Reineman, and Sandy D'Alembert. Steve Zack also was on the board representing the young lawyers. I'm sure I left out a few of them. There are too many to name, but all of them made a substantial contribution to the profession as well as to the work of the Florida Bar. Jack and I both learned invaluable lessons from all of them. Jack had a unique ability to know the right thing to do, but he didn't tell you what to do. He just helped it to evolve. His guidance was invaluable, and he knew how to help the president make the tough calls. No problem was too big. Rather, every problem was an opportunity and was handled in the most professional manner. I and the presidents of the Florida Bar who followed me were the beneficiary of his help and guidance. We were all better for having served with Jack and with the great staff that he built at the Florida Bar. From Hank's introduction, you know that many of the past presidents are here tonight to honor Jack. Jack has truly been a leader, but always a humble man. He was a quick study, and he accomplished a great deal during his tenure. As Jack took over as executive director of the Florida Bar, there were approximately 28,000 members of the Florida Bar, and today there are over 105,000 members. The budget was approximately $7 million, and today it is more than 6 times that amount. The Florida Bar is one of the largest integrated bars in the country. I think I can say without fear of contradiction that it is the most respected bar in the country, due in large measure to Jack's accomplishments and his reputation. He made the bar his life's work. As executive director, Jack was always reflective and deliberative, calm, never rattled. He is a man with a heart of gold, a very caring soul. He is known for treating everyone with the utmost respect and kindness. Jack was successful because he loved what he was doing and he believed in what he was doing. He had to put up and endure with the personalities and plans and goals with 37 presidents of the Florida Bar. As I said at the Florida Bar Convention, just the thought of working with 37 presidents of the Florida Bar with type A personalities is enough to make you tired, really and true. It was a daunting task, but Jack managed to do it, and to do it well, and every one of us appreciates what you did, Jack. Indeed, your success is celebrated throughout the nation. I think that every director of every bar association, state and local throughout the United States, says to himself, I want to be like Jack. It is important for all of us to remember that it matters not how all this started, nor indeed how it ended. Rather, it is the journey between the two that counts. And so it is today that we celebrate your many achievements and contributions to the judiciary, to the legal profession, and to the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society by presenting you with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, all of you should know that it was Jack's wish, and with great humility, that he received no plaque, no big glass vase, no sterling silver tray to be presented to him on this occasion. Rather, Jack asked that the cost of such recognition be directed instead to a contribution to the Florida Bar Foundation Children's Legal Services Fund. Accordingly, the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society, together with the officers and directors of the society, have made a contribution of $5,000 towards that fund. If you, the member of this audience, wish to also make a contribution in honor of this occasion, you may do so by sending your check to the Florida Bar Foundation and noting that it's for the Children's Legal Services Fund in honor of Jack Harkness. Shakespeare wrote, "All the world's a stage." In more than 37 years, Jack, you have performed almost every day before the most demanding of audiences. So it is only fitting and proper that we recognize that singular achievement by presenting you with this proclamation. Jack, I would appreciate it if you would join me on the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, our honoree, John F. Jack Harkness, Jr. It's all right. It is my pleasure to present this proclamation in your honor. The Florida Supreme Court Historical Society Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Jack Harkness, Jr. in recognition of an incredible career as Executive Director of the Florida Bar, his invaluable impact on the legal profession and the judicial system, his passion for legal and court history, his contribution to the society as trustee and member for over 30 years, and by unanimous vote of the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society Board of Trustees. Jack, congratulations. Thank you. And now, we invite Jack to make a few appropriate words, as long as he likes. Thank you. We ought to take a picture of us.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Let's see, a few words right before you're going to eat. Yeah, that's not going to take long. I have to thank Leonard. He mentioned that we started together at the bar. He was president, I was director in 1980, and it's been a long friendship. I had some remarks to present tonight, except I went to Supreme Court Historical Society meeting today, and I was reminded by the Chief Justice that for the last 3 years, Hank Coxe has been cheating him out of his time for his remarks. So I'm going to forego most of my remarks and give him my time. I know you will really enjoy that. Over the year, I have worked with many people in this room, and at this age, I have worked with some of your fathers and some of your mothers. So it seems like about time I become unemployed after 37 years. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I've learned an awful lot about people more than anything else. People want to do good. They want to do what's right. They just all want to be listened to one way or the other. I think that the biggest thing that I learned with people have opinions. You need to listen to their opinions. Everybody's got opinions on the Board of Governors. 52 of them have opinions on the Board of Governors. You will hear those opinions at least once during a meeting, if not twice. And evidently, and every once in a while, you hear one about 3 times. There are opinions on the Florida Supreme Court, some more dissents than others, but that's the way it goes. But I really appreciate all the work that you all have done for all the people in the state of Florida, not only for the judiciary, for the people in the state of Florida. And the biggest thing about history is to remember what history did and to learn from it. And I think that's what we all have to do. We all have to learn what history is. We have to learn our own history. In looking through the history of the Florida bar recently, it surprised me that it was the junior bar section of the Florida bar who wanted to unify or make the Florida bar mandatory. That was in 1935. It took them from 1935 to 1949 to get it done. But interesting, too, that the Bar Association, the Florida Bar Association, voted on that proposal in 1936 at their annual meeting in Havana, Cuba. Things have changed. Things have changed. Anyway, I really do thank you for all the honors and gifts. I appreciate your contribution to the Florida Bar Foundation. That's a little, it's not a trick, but it's something I've got going with my wife right now. I'm trying to move out of my office after 37 years, and I keep bringing, quote, stuff home, plaques and mementos and things like that, you know. So I got looking at all of them, and I said, they're wonderful. They are very nice, but I can take a picture of them and keep them. So I thought it would just be better just to donate that money to another cause. So again, thank you for this award and this honor and for the contribution.
For those of you who aren't aware of it, the Jack Harkness retirement has been going on since 1997. The next event for Jack is in Orlando in 2 months. And I will say, as one of those people he referred to, who worked with him for a year as president, that we love you, but we don't love you as much as your wife, Jerry. It's great to have you here, Jerry. Also, Schifino did not come up here and say, Hank, you omitted Mike Heiger, the current president of the Florida Bar, or Michelle Suskauer, the president-elect, or John Stewart, the president-elect, doesn't it? So they're all right here. So thank you. Before we take a break, for those of you who've been coming for a few years, you may remember the thrill when Dean Cannon came and asked if he could have the podium for 5 minutes right before he became Speaker. And he came up, and it was a kumbaya moment where he said that this would be the year that the legislature married the Supreme Court and everything would be great. Within 2 months, Dean, whom we all know, proposed the division of the Supreme Court into 2 courts, one to handle traffic and the other to handle family law. So we have not forgotten that a great event up here.
My name is Edward Guedes. I happen to be the current president of the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society. And in that capacity, it falls upon me to provide you with an update of what the Society has been doing over the past year. Given that we are running a bit behind schedule and you probably don't want to hear from me, I will mention just 3 items. First, I am pleased to report that the desk, the historic desk that Sandy D'Alembert donated to the Society has finally found its home at the Florida Supreme Court. As you can imagine, when you have a group of 40-some-odd lawyers together discussing the logistics of how you move a historical desk, it took 2 years before 4 individuals just said, pick it up and move it to the court. And that's exactly what happened. They picked it up and moved it to the court. And that's where it is. But it sits there. It's available for the public to see. I urge you to stop by and see it. Tomorrow morning, we will be accepting a donation of Chief Justice William Ellis's papers and personal effects that have been generously donated by his family. His granddaughter, Martha Ellis, and great-granddaughter, Kathy Berry, are both with us here this evening. I would ask that they please stand so they can be recognized and thanked for their generous donation. Right over there. And the last update I'll provide is that during the past year, we held a very, very successful retirement dinner for Justice Perry in Orlando. Very well attended. The Perry family had a tremendous time, very much enjoyed it. And now we have 3 more dinners to host. And as you can imagine, each justice has their own particular preferences for how the dinners will go forward. So we will be, I'm not allowed to share any of that information with any of you, but we will be busy over the next year, and I encourage you, if you have the opportunity to attend any of those dinners, please do so. They really are a wonderful event. And now, with that, I will stop my update, and I will invite up to the podium, please, Justice Alan Lawson and his wife, Julie Lawson, as well for the unveiling of his portrait, as well as the artist, Darlene McBride Williams. If you would all please come up here. It will be unveiled by Mrs. Lawson and the artist is, there you, there we go. I wasn't sure where you were. Welcome. Oh, no, actually, you should probably stand where you can actually be in the photo, and I'm not.
Gotta figure this all out.
Hopefully it doesn't fall.
1, 2, 3.
Sure, it is very nice. There are 3x5 copies of the portrait underneath all your chairs. So just reach under, find it. I'm sure that's another free gift that we're giving you along with the wiping cord. Hank? And I will turn it over now back to our MC, Hank Coxe.
I don't know how many years ago it was, I introduced Justice Polston, who was Chief Justice, to give us the State of the Judiciary remarks, and I told him off to the side he had 2 minutes. And unfortunately, he took me seriously, and he did not forgive me since then. But he kept it to 2 minutes, and then the following year he told, or 2 years later, he told Chief Justice Labarga, you get 2 minutes, that's all Coxe will give you. And so it's been a sort of a delicate situation ever since, but in any event, you have as much time as you want as long as it doesn't intrude on Hilarie Bass's time. So let me welcome to the podium the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida, trial judge in Palm Beach, District Court of Appeal judge for, I believe, 1 day, for those of you who remember, and then appointed to the Florida Supreme Court, and is the only justice we've had who has served 2 terms as Chief Justice. Justice Labarga.
This is my 4th speech as Chief Justice, my last as Chief Justice. And did Hank turn this off? As he mentioned to you, he's been lying to me for the last 4 years and been telling me that I only have 3 minutes. I was told that the real time that we're told to stick to is 7 minutes. So as I see it, 4 years, he owes me 4 minutes per year, times 4, that's 16. So 16 minutes, I'm old and I'm cashing in. He's a very mean man. As you know, Hank Coxe, I'll get to you in a minute, Jack. Hank Coxe is a very mean person. Been lying to me like that, the Chief Justice. And he's also a big fan, you know, of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he is truly heartbroken right now. In fact, he barely got through the weekend. By the way, did you get that 8x10 of Tom Brady I sent you? Well, it's a great pleasure to be here tonight and to be surrounded by so many people who show their commitment to the Florida Supreme Court. The state's judicial branch and the rule of law by their service in and in support of this society. So we appreciate the support that you give us in this great dinner every year. And on behalf of my fellow justices and the truly excellent staff who make it possible for us to do our work, I offer our deep gratitude for all that you do. And thank you sincerely, and that is unanimous, something you don't see often. Since I brought up the subject of service and appreciation, it seems natural and appropriate, even inevitable, to now focus our attention on tonight's honoree. Year in and year out for 37 years, what a difference Jack Harkness has made in Florida's legal system, and how much we truly owe him for what he's done for our profession. In fact, every person in our state is in his debt for managing the day-to-day operations of one of the best run and most respected professional regulatory bodies in the nation. Jack Hart. Please don't cry. You're going to make me cry. Jack Harkness has served our legal system well, thus he has served the rule of law well, and thus he has served millions of people very, very, very well. And I also, before I move on, I do want to pay tribute to Hilarie Bass. And it is wonderful to have a Floridian, once again, at the helm of the American Bar Association. And we all know that she is a great leader for our profession. So let's give her a hand. Hilarie and I spent the day together in Congress earlier last year, going from office to office, trying to convince them to not cut, as the president suggested, our Legal Services Corporation's budget. And she had and she had an interesting approach. And I remember we were sitting in Senator Rubio's office, and she handed him a stack of cards, like playing cards. And in the cards, they had a photograph of someone that legal aid had helped, along with the data in the back. And she handed that to him, a stack of about 50 of them, and said, "These are some of your constituents." And Senator Rubio responded by saying, "This is a great idea. Mind if I use it in my next campaign?" But thank you, Hilarie, for all that you do, and thank you for taking the time to fly into Tallahassee this time of year to be with us tonight. There are several issues that I do want to touch upon in my remarks, if I can get serious for about 30 seconds. So I'm going to jump right into them. The legislature last year did something truly historic, at least as far back as I can remember. For the first time in more than a decade, state legislators gave judges a pay raise. Florida's judicial pay have been lagging for years. This 10% pay increase addressed critical need to help ensure our ability to attract and keep quality jurists at every level of our court system. So I want to take this opportunity, I know they're not here tonight, but I want to take this opportunity to thank Senate President Joe Negron, Speaker Richard Corcoran, for doing this, for passing this bill. And I want to thank Governor Scott for not vetoing the bill. And the judges are very appreciative of that fact. Another subject, meanwhile, we are getting older, and I'm not trying to be rude here. I don't mean you, except for Jack. But I'm referring to the fact that Florida's population is aging, and aging rapidly. In just a dozen years, demographers forecast that almost a quarter of the people living in Florida will be 65 years old or older. It kind of boggles the mind. In light of that trend, it's no surprise to see guardianship cases also on the upswing. And the pace of that caseload growth is itself expected to increase. And here's the good news. For the last year and a half, a guardianship workshop has been hard at work under the umbrella of the Judicial Management Council created by the Florida Supreme Court. The workshop has been examining judicial procedures and best practices, brainstorming improvements on how to better handle guardianship cases. We are determined to ensure that courts do all they can to protect the vulnerable people who are incapacitated in the state of Florida. The guardianship work group will report to the Supreme Court this fall with suggestions as how to improve that program. And that's not all. Florida is one of 5 states to receive grant funding to establish broad-based interdisciplinary initiatives that focus on how to improve guardianship systems. Let me briefly mention to you another group operating under the oversight of the Judicial Management Council of the Supreme Court, and that is trial court security. We have a trial court security work group. Our courthouses are where people go to seek justice and resolve disputes. We absolutely must make sure that they are places that are safe and secure for the people who go there for help, as well as the people who work there every single day. Those of us who try cases, or used to try cases, you know that on Monday mornings you walk into most courthouses in our state and you have hundreds and hundreds of people coming in to do jury service. People come in to do that, some of them quite happy, a lot of them not very happy. But we have an obligation to make sure these folks who are coming in, to make sure that justice is done the way it was intended to be done by our framers of the Constitution, that they are safe in that building. And the security work group, in this case, will report its findings to the Supreme Court by the end of June. We have been traveling throughout the entire state, from Pensacola down to Miami. We've been visiting courthouses, we've been studying them, and we have a report that we're going to prepare, and hopefully we're going to make suggestions to each county. As you know, the courthouses fall under the counties, as to how they can better protect citizens who use these courthouses every single day, as well as the people who work in these buildings. In closing, and don't applaud here, Hank, this is my 4th time and my last time speaking to you as Chief Justice. And I got to tell you, it's been a real pleasure for me to have been your Chief Justice for 4 years. It's been a long 4 years. A lot has happened in these 4 years. And I like to think that somehow along the way we have improved our system even a little more than it was before. I spoke about court communications at length last year. And I won't repeat myself, but I wanted to share with you what I heard this last summer when I traveled out of state to a conference of Chief Justices from all over the country. You know, we have, as you know, we have 50 Chief Justices, and 49 usually show up. One from Alabama usually doesn't come. But, not going there. But every single, our communications plan among the court administrators of the other state has really has been discovered in a sense where they're all asking about it, how we doing this in Florida. Today at the awards ceremony, I spoke about the fact that our oral arguments now can be watched from your iPhone. We are, on Facebook now. So you can be anywhere and watch the oral arguments on your iPhone. I mentioned today how now my children can actually see their dad because they get to use their iPhone. But we are keeping up with technology because, as you know, Florida was the first state in the country to actually have televised oral arguments. We have a reputation in this country as being in the forefront of transparency in what our branch does, because we have a firm belief that justice should not only be done, it really must be seen to be done, and that's how we get our legitimacy. And the more people see what we do, the less they will question what we do. And I think as technology advances, so should our ability and our willingness to transmit that so people can reach it in any way they have available. So court leaders from outside the state, they do nothing but ask about our communications plan. All want copies of it. And at this last conference I went to in Washington, it was presented as the model to use in communications plans. So we are in the forefront of that. So I'm very happy. This was some of the few accomplishments that I think we made in my 4 years. And if anything, I have not used the 16 minutes that Hank Coxe stole from me in the last 4 years. But I hope that he enjoys the 8x10 of Tom Brady every single day for the rest of the year. So, and I wanted to mention that I appointed Hank to the Constitutional Revision Commission, and he has been doing a great job. And we have the chair of the commission here, and he advises me that Hank is doing a great job. I want you all to meet, if you have not already, Carlos Baruf. Carlos, if you stand. and his very nice wife, Janelle. And Carlos is from... And I think Carlos is the only one, you know, it takes 2 Cubans to keep Hank in line. And so we've been keeping him in line. So anyway, I'm not going to use all my 16 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and leave you now. And Hank, you can have it again. Thank you all. You want me to stay? He wants me to stay.
No, 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 you're good. You're good, Chief. Actually, it takes 3 Cubans because I also qualify.
He says he's Cuban. Can you believe that?
No, not at all. Not for a moment. Anyway, Oscar Wilde had just been introduced to speak to an audience of university students. And as he approached the stage with a look of frustration, he said, "When introducing an interesting person, the introduction should never be so long as to cause the audience to lose interest." So heeding that suggestion, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce the President of the American Bar Association and one of the most interesting people I have ever had the privilege to meet, Hilarie Bass.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come speak with you this evening. I guess I should start by 2 personal shout-outs. One is for the Chief Justice, because he described for you the 2 days we spent walking the halls of Capitol Hill, but I have to tell you what a difference it made. We went and visited every congressman and woman and every senator representing the state of Florida. Yes, the reaction to the cards was really phenomenal, but the reaction to have your Chief Justice taking 2 days out of his busy schedule to walk the halls of Congress and to fight for legal services, we so much appreciate it, and it really made a difference. And then the second personal shout out is my personal commentary on Jack. I know that everyone in this room is fully aware of what Jack has done for the Florida Bar, and the fact that 100,000 lawyers from Pensacola to Key West knows about Jack Harkness, knows about the changes that he's made in the Florida Bar. But you should all be aware that when I walk the halls of the American Bar Association, meeting after meeting, there is no Florida Bar member recognized and respected more than our Jack Harkness. And there is no question in my mind that it's Jack's work at the Florida Bar and the respect with which this bar is held that has allowed this state to have had the ability to send me to the ABA presidency, Martha, Sandy, Steve Zach. I mean, the list is incredible, and we really rank at the top out of our 50 states. And so I thank you, Jack, for being a personal mentor to me and for all you've done for the Florida Bar. So I've now had the privilege of serving as president of the ABA for about 5 months, just over 5 months. And in that time, I have traveled to 5 continents, 12 countries, and over 30 cities. And there are obvious questions that I get every place I go. What do you think about the public discourse going on in the American media? Are you concerned about the lack of bipartisanship? Do you think your democratic institutions will get through this period of history? And the one indelible impression that I have been left with in all of these travels is very simply the respect of the American lawyer that is held by everyone throughout the globe, whether in India or in Vietnam, whether in Marrakesh or Hong Kong. Everywhere I go, people talk about American pro bono lawyers being in airports holding signs out to immigrants to offer pro bono assistance. People talk about state attorney generals running into court to fight for what they believe are the constitutional principles that they gave an oath to uphold. And people talk about the integrity of our judiciary. And that's universal across the world, and it is something we can all be very, very proud of, and something we all need to personally commit to maintain. So I thought I would talk about some of the activities that I've been involved in this year as president of the ABA. And one of them is something that the Florida Bar has been very involved in, and that's homeless youth. When I had the opportunity to pick a focus for my pro bono efforts throughout the American Bar Association, I decided to focus on the issue of children living in the street. Because internationally, there are more than 100 million children who go to sleep every night without a roof over their head or without a bed to sleep in. And within the United States, over 1 million children suffer that fate. So back in November, 110 people met in Sao Paulo. These were NGOs from throughout the world, and they got together in a conference to talk about how they could come up with implementing principles for the general comment that the UN issued just last spring with reference to the UN Treaty on the Rights of Children. And this is a testament to the American Bar Association, because never before had NGOs from around the world focusing on homeless youth gotten together to exchange ideas about how can we do this better? How can we ensure that India does not withhold health benefits because of the inability of a child on the street to have a birth certificate? Or how in the Congo do they deal with children running away from violence? It was an incredible conference, and we are going to be coming to Vancouver and again in Chicago to bring specific reports and resolutions to the House of Delegates that deal with the issue of homeless children and what we can all do to assist them. But specifically in Florida, there is a domestic component to this pro bono effort, and that deals with trying to provide pro bono lawyers to more than 350 homeless shelters around the country that specifically focus on homeless youth. And so we have gotten tremendous support from law firms, bar associations, and in-house counsel groups who commit to spend 1 day a month going to a homeless shelter and giving children the helping hand they need. Maybe it's figuring out how to get a driver's license. Maybe it's a foster child who's run away from foster care and wants to re-enroll in school. Maybe it's getting rid of a criminal infraction on their record. These are common problems, and a lawyer who can spend just a few hours once or twice a year can make a real difference in the trajectory of that child's life. And in Florida, we've had the Florida Bar Foundation with great support from Erica Garcia to work with us to pair these shelters. We have 11 shelter partnerships throughout the state. 4 law firms in particular are being extremely supportive: Ackerman, Holland & Knight, the Russo Law Firm, and Greenberg Traurig. And special thanks to the 8th Circuit Voluntary Bar Foundation, which is taking a shelter in Gainesville and may take 2 more, one in Palatka and one in Lake City, in partnership with the legal aid offices here, covering 3 rural areas that are particularly in desperate need of our help. So thank you for your great support, and we look forward to continuing to work with you this year on this project. Now, I thought I would also speak to you tonight about the necessity of defending the independence of our judiciary. We all know in many ways public perception is a reality, and that is why it is essential for us to fight for a strong and independent judiciary. maintaining public trust in the judicial system is the one thing we can all agree on, whether Democrat or Republican. We all understand that our democracy can only thrive and move forward if we have a strong and independent judiciary. Of course, it's the work of this Historical Society and others like this that really continue to ensure that that independent judiciary is defended. But the ABA, in its 140-year history, has made supporting judicial independence one of its key goals. And since I became president in August, I have stepped in on multiple occasions to fight for the independence of the judiciary. In October, when there were accusations made that some judges were failing to, quote, respect our representatives in Congress and failed to respect the prerogatives and perspectives of the executive branch, I issued a strong statement that judges take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not to protect the prerogatives and perspectives of the executive or the congressional branch. In November, when the president called our judicial system a joke and a laughingstock, I stated publicly that adherence to the rule of law and the protections of our system of justice are critical aspects of our response to such a tragedy, that they are the foundation for the values we hold dear. And of course, the American Bar Association is a nonpartisan organization. I do not speak out against politicians, but we do speak out against policies, and we will continue to speak out in support of the judiciary at any time that any politician suggests that the independence of the judiciary should in any way be compromised. Now, the ABA has also focused on successfully working with state and local bars when court budgets were slashed during the Great Recession, ensuring that justice was not being sacrificed for the goal of balancing state budgets. But we have also helped enter the fray when judges have been the subject of unfair criticism. We have an ABA manual entitled Rapid Response to Unfair and Unjust Criticism of Judges, which we provide to bar associations so that lawyers and local communities can stand up for our judges when they are criticized. The manual recommends ways that bar associations and others can timely respond to serious and unjust criticism of judges and the judiciary. And it also recommends ways to clarify misunderstandings about the role of judges in our judicial system. It offers a mechanism through local bars to provide the public with the information they need on issues in specific situations, the application of law, and the restrictions and responsibilities that are placed on judges. The revision available this spring will include new sections on fake news, social media, and more. Now, we have also provided a media guide for judges. The ABA Standing Committee on the American Judicial System is creating a guide on how to work with the media to ensure fair and accurate reporting. Media guides, for example, offer advice to judges on meeting with reporters who cover their courts to answer questions and make sure that the reporters understand the relevant legal issues and the procedures. Of course, fortunately, the ABA has powerful allies in its work to educate the public. Across the nation, we have seen the fairness and impartiality of state court judges threatened by powerful special interests that seek to tip the scales of justice in their favor. Their success rests on their ability to mislead the voters. The Informed Voters Fair Judges Project, operated by the National Association of Women Judges, has been a tremendous countervailing force. Special interest attacks have no place in our courts, and the Informed Voters Project gives citizens the tools they need to ensure that judges are appointed and elected based on their character, ability, and integrity. The ABA Judicial Division has been a partner on this project for several years. 3 leaders of the ABA Judicial Division are also active with the NAWJ. 2 years ago, the Judicial Division and its Lawyers Conference honored the project and the NAWJ with the Hod Greeley Award, which recognizes groups and individuals that promote increased awareness of the need for a fair and impartial judiciary. Justice Barbara Pariente of the Florida Supreme Court has been a major player in the project as co-chair of the Judicial Independence Committee of the National Association of Women Judges. For her efforts, she was recently selected as the Sandra Day O'Connor Jurist Award winner from the American College of Trial Lawyers, which award honors judges who have demonstrated exemplary judicial independence, sometimes in difficult or dangerous circumstances. This is only the 3rd time the honor has been bestowed since it was created in 2007. So congratulations, Justice Pariente. I also wanted to mention a task force which was created in 2016 and that specifically recommends ways for lawyers to bridge the gaps and try and enhance public trust. It is called the Task Force on Building Public Trust in the American Justice System, and we have produced a toolkit that helps guide hosts and facilitators at local community meetings. The first community forum to host the toolkit was in Tampa last summer, co-sponsored by the Georgia EdgeCom Bar Association of the Federal Bar Association. The ABA Working Group is following up on the task force's recommendation, and this year we are focusing on the issue of fees and fines. The group is creating a list of 10 principles for judges to apply in state and federal courts when considering fees and fines. As many of you know, fees and fines are currently being used to criminalize poverty in our country. Many people are in jail purely because they do not have the money to bail out or to pay the fees and fines, oftentimes for issues that would never have been required, would never include jail time originally, but they end up in jail because of their inability to pay a fine or fee, which was entered without any consideration of their ability to pay. This group will be holding a workshop on the proposal at the mid-year meeting in Vancouver, and we are hoping that this set of best practices and principles for judges will be voted on by the House of Delegates in August in Chicago. Now, one more way that the ABA is focusing on public trust is something that I created the day that I became ABA president, and that is called ABA Legal Fact Check. And it is a response to the idea that there can be fake news or alternative facts when it comes to law. ABA Legal Fact Check reflects that there are no alternative facts when it comes to law, that oftentimes there is settled law, and that both the media and the public should have a place where they can find out what that is. So every 2 weeks since we created this webpage, since August, we come out with a new statement about some issue that is in the public discourse. So, for example, some of the ones that we have issued have to do with, for example, there was a lot of public discourse about whether or not someone who burns the American flag should have their citizenship revoked. And we went on the website in a nonpartisan way and explained that in 1978, in the case of Texas versus Johnson, the United States Supreme Court had resolved this issue and concluded that the burning of an American flag is a First Amendment right of free expression. If there is settled law on an issue, and if the media or others in the public discourse are suggesting that the law is something other than what it is, the ABA should be the ultimate place where people know they can go and find out what the law really stands for. And so, since August, we have written about such things as Who has the constitutional authority to redraw judicial districts? What type of holiday I'm trying to describe what, thank you, holiday celebrations are appropriate under the Constitution. We have spoken on under what circumstances a naturalized citizen can have their citizenship revoked. We have talked about the right of an employer to fire an employee, in this case an NFL player, because they disagree with a statement that they're making as part of their job. We are getting tens of thousands of hits a week. I suggest if you have an interest, you go online, ABA Legal Fact Check, and you will find some very, very interesting issues that are being discussed on a weekly basis. What we know is that the media is in fact coming to us to find out what the law is on many of these issues that are in the public discourse. So, in conclusion, lawyers, judges, legal professionals, and friends of the court, we all must fight to uphold our constitutional principles. That means fighting to uphold our judicial independence, fighting to recognize and express the importance of separation of powers, and fighting to support our constitutional premises. It is the bedrock of our American Constitution, and I am so glad to be a part of the American Bar Association at a time when our country looks to American lawyers to stand up for our democracy and our democratic principles. I couldn't be more proud as I make these trips to be a member of the Florida Bar, because as you hear over and over and over, the Florida Bar really is looked to throughout the country for our leadership on these issues. Once again, I thank you for the invitation to spend a few minutes with you this evening and congratulate you on the great work of the Historical Society.
Stranger, how
How are you?
Long time no see. Hilarie has said she's got a few minutes for questions, if anyone has any. I sat on the House of Delegates of the ABA in Chicago and watched her work and said, I know who's going to be president of the ABA and I know who's not going to be president of the ABA. So, anyone have any questions? Ed.
Hilarie, you mentioned, whoa, I wish that mic had worked this well. Yeah. You mentioned that you had spent some time traveling through Vietnam. Could you share with us a little bit what your experience was like in Vietnam? It's one of the last few communist nations in the world. And there you were as a representative of American democracy and the judicial system.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
As somebody who had, in middle school and high school worn black armbands against the war and watched that terrible conflict on the nightly news, I was very interested in seeing whether or not there was something we as American lawyers could do to assist the developing justice system in Vietnam. As it turned out, they were very anxious to have us come there. And so just last week, myself and the president-elect of the American Bar and a delegation of 10, including a Ninth Circuit judge and the head of the litigation section of the ABA, went to Hanoi for 4 days. During that 4 days, we were invited to the presidential palace to meet with the prime minister. We were invited to the Supreme Court to meet with the Chief Justice. We were invited to meet with the Justice Minister. And we had the pleasure of training 100 Vietnamese lawyers from all throughout the country on legal ethics. They are writing a new system of legal ethics, and they wanted our help. The most amazing thing about being in Vietnam was once again recognizing that despite all of our history, the Justice Minister stood there and said, "You have such an amazing nation, and I know it's because you have strong lawyers. Would you please commit to come back and help our lawyers learn how to become true adversaries?" So we will be back, and if there's anybody in the audience that has an interest in helping the Vietnamese people develop a true adversarial justice system, let me know, because we did promise we would come back and help them do that.
Hilarie, thank you for your leadership. And you are an inspiration along with other trailblazers like our Justice Barbara Pariente. So thank you for inspiring so many of us. I understand that the ABA has begun a study on why experienced women lawyers have left our profession, our beloved profession, in droves. Can you enlighten us on that study?
Sure. So what we now know is there have been 30 years where women and men have been about 50-50 in law school classes. And typically, first jobs, that percentage remains. But every single year after women start the practice of law, they leave the profession, I would say in droves. And it used to be, we all thought anecdotally, that women were leaving somewhere between the 5th year of practice and maybe the 12th year of practice when they were having children and they decided that they were not prepared to pay the price to be a practicing lawyer. What we now know is that actually a lot of those women come back, and we are seeing women continue to leave every single year. By the time you're at age 50, women make up close to only 25% of the profession. So that means in that 20 to 25 year window, half of the women are choosing to leave. So we thought it was important to figure out why this is happening and what, if anything, we can do. Because the idea of women leaving after they've achieved partnership, they obviously have a level of success, they have clients, they have experience, they're at their greatest value to the profession, and yet they're still choosing to leave. Now, I suspect most of the women practitioners in this audience have pretty strong views about why you think women are leaving, as I do as well, but anecdotes don't change behavior, data does. And so the incentive for doing this year-long study was to interview women who had left, women who had stayed, and to try and figure out what we as a profession can do better. Because if you think the statistics are bad for women, you should just wait till you look at the minority attorney numbers. And so we are hoping to really create some new work by the summer of this year as to specific proposals we can make to law firms as to how they might do things differently so they don't have this talent drain.
Thank you.